Billy Leon Curse became one of the most controversial death penalty cases in modern Florida history. His story stretched across more than 3 decades, from a deadly confrontation during a routine traffic stop in 1991 to his execution in 2026. Supporters of the execution viewed the case as justice for the slain police officer. Opponents argued it represented the tragic destruction of a troubled teenager who spent most of his life awaiting death. In Billy's early life, he was born on October 26, 1972. Much of his early life was later described in court as unstable and traumatic. Defense experts during later appeals argued that Curse suffered from intellectual limitations, childhood neglect, and developmental problems that affected his judgment and impulse control. Reports presented during appeals claim he experienced severe childhood trauma and possible brain injury during his youth. By the time he reached adulthood, Curse had already encountered law enforcement and struggled with direction in life. At just 18 years old, his life changed forever during a late-night encounter with a police officer in Fort Pierce, Florida. The date was January 18, 1991. The incident began shortly after midnight in Fort Pierce, Florida. Fort Pierce officer Danny Parrish, a respected 29-year-old officer, observed a vehicle traveling the wrong way down a one-way street. Parrish initiated a traffic stop and approached the driver, Billy Leon Curse. During the stop, Curse failed to produce a valid driver's license and reportedly gave false names to the officer. Prosecutors later stated that Parrish attempted to place Curse under arrest after discovering the inconsistencies. What happened next turned violent within seconds. According to court records, a struggle broke out between the two men. During the fight, Curse managed to seize Parrish's service weapon. Prosecutors said Curse fired 14 shots, striking the officer 13 times. Some bullets hit Parrish's body armor, while the other ones struck his body directly. A nearby taxi driver reportedly heard the gunfire and used the officer's radio to call for help. Officer Parrish was rushed to a hospital but later died from his injuries. The killing shocked Florida law enforcement and devastated the Fort Pierce County. Police quickly identified Curse through information Officer Parrish had radioed in before the struggle. Officers arrested Curse at his home not long after the shooting. Later in 1991, Curse was convicted of first-degree murder and robbery with a firearm. The jury recommended death, and Curse was sentenced to death in death row in Florida. At the time of sentencing, Curse was only 18 years old. Like many death penalty cases, Curse's legal battle continued for years. The Florida Supreme Court later ruled that jurors in the original sentencing phase had not received proper instructions regarding aggravating circumstances. Because of this issue, the death sentence was overturned and a new sentencing hearing was ordered. In 1997, Curse was again sentenced to death. Over the next several decades, attorneys filed numerous appeals challenging jury procedures, the constitutionality of the sentence, claims of intellectual disability, the legality of executing someone whose crimes occurred shortly after turning 18. The defense lawyers argued that Curse possessed diminished mental capacity and acted impulsively during the confrontation. Prosecutors countered that the killing of a police officer during a lawful stop justified the death penalty. Billy Curse ultimately spent 35 years on death row. During that time, public attitudes towards capital punishment evolved dramatically. Critics of the death penalty pointed to Curse's age at the time of the crime and the extraordinary length of time he spent awaiting execution. Others argued the long appeals process further prolonged and suffering of Officer Parrish's family. The case became a broader national debate about capital punishment, juvenile and young adult offenders, mental impairment, police killings, criminal rehabilitation. On January 29, 2026, the death warrant was signed. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed Kurth's death warrant, scheduling his execution for March 3, 2026. His attorneys filed final appeals with both the Florida Supreme Court and the United States Supreme Court. They argued that executing Kurth violated constitutional protections due to his intellectual limitations and the circumstance of his original sentencing. Both courts rejected the appeal. The execution went through. On the evening of March 3, 2026, Billy Leon Kurth was executed by lethal injection at Florida State Prison, near Stark, Florida, when he was 53 years old. Witnesses reported that Kurth appeared calm in the execution chamber before the drugs were administered. He addressed the family of Danny Parrish directly. His final statement included an apology.
For his final words, and this is what Kurth said. He said, "I apologize for what I've done. I apologize to the family. My death will not repay it. I ask for God's forgiveness."
Following the execution, Danny Parrish's widow said she finally felt peace after waiting more than 3 decades for the sentence to be carried out. At the same time, opponents of the death penalty criticized Florida's aggressive use of capital punishment in 2025 and 2026. Some argued that executing a man who committed a crime as a teenager after 35 years of imprisonment served little societal purpose. The case continued to divide public opinion. Some viewed it as justice for a murdered officer. Others saw it as a tragedy involving violence, trauma, and a lifetime loss on both sides. The story of Billy Leon Kurth remains one of Florida's most discussed death penalty cases because it combines several emotionally charged issues: the murder of a police officer, a teenage offender, claims of intellectual disability, decades spent on death row, questions surrounding justice and execution. For the family of Officer Danny Parrish, the execution marked the end of a painful chapter. For critics of capital punishment, it became another example in debate over whether executions provide justice or simply continue cycles of loss. In the end, 2 lives were destroyed on the dark Florida street in January 1991. Officer Danny Parrish lost his life immediately. Billy Leon Kurth spent 35 years waiting for the state to take his. I appreciate you watching the first episode of The Eyedea of Crime. Documentaries, investigative, and unique stories will come on this channel. Until next time, peace, y'all.